What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, and some of the haters and things people are coming after him for and all that stuff. That's what we're going to talk about today because that's leading up to our, I call it the Final Four of the NFL, but we're coming into the conference time. This is not going to be a preview of those games yet, but I want to discuss the Jimmy G thing because the last, about a week it's been kind of happening, and then the last 2 days it's been kind of ramping up. Loyal fans of the podcast, there hasn't really been an episode put out. Life happens and everything else. So we will dive into Jimmy G and everything else. But before we dive into all of that, make sure if you're watching the video on YouTube that you hit the like button and the subscribe button, of course. Please do that for me. Helps out the algorithm and get the video out there. If you're listening to the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, please follow them. I believe you can follow, I know on Apple you can, and then rate it. I know on Spotify you can now rate them now. So it can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast, literally anywhere. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Google, literally anywhere. So go rate it, be a friend, tell a friend, all that stuff. And then the podcast is also brought to you by the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. If you go to bellyupsports.com, check out the over 70 some podcasts, blogs, media. There's stuff even like, I do a little segment on movies and stuff. There's a whole segment out there on movies in the Belly Up sports world. So go to bellyupsports.com and check out all of that. It'd be greatly appreciated. It's a great place to go. It's a growing sports network, and it's actually a media network. So go check that out. Great place if you love to find different podcasts and everything, and get merchandise. Check out the affiliates with that. The podcast is also brought to you by Coach Stone Football, and is back to the basics, books, and drills. Football coaches, some of you are going to get ready for spring ball soon, and the rest of us that don't have spring ball, it's creeping up on us. The summer is creeping up. Some of you are probably meeting with your staffs here eventually because basketball is going to be wrapping up soon. If you're like me, we're looking ways to get more simple, like simpler. Is that a phrase? More simply. And we're always looking to get better. We're always looking for some niche. We're always looking for a way to make things easier for us and the kids. That's why Coach Stone made his Back to the Basics books and drills. He's got tons of books. His very first one ever is over 500 pages, and then he has branched off from that. Offense, defense, practice planning, game planning, strength and conditioning, but all of his drills. That's what it is. Back to the basics, drill manuals, and everything else. So if you go to CoachStoneFootball.com, check out all the books there. You will never have to look up another drill again, I promise you. So go do that, CoachStoneFootball.com. Thank you, Coach Stone, for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, we're going to dive into Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G. Jimmy G, of course, is starting quarterback of the 49ers. Now, I'm going to be a tad bit biased. Went to EIU with Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. His first 2 years of playing football there, the team struggled. And then Coach Babers gets there, and they took off. He brought that Baylor offense because Coach Babers was the wide receivers coach at Baylor when Art Briles was the head coach. He had RG3. There's the quarterback. They did all that, right? So brought all that in. So been around that. Real quick, RIP to Kobe Bryant. I was going to do a whole segment of a podcast dedicated to Kobe Bryant, but I did that earlier about how Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron James. He's got to be one of the GOATs. But RIP, it was 2 years ago today that, he and Gigi, perished in the helicopter crash with a bunch of other friends and other people's families, which was a horrific helicopter crash. Still can't believe it happened. But RIP to Kobe Bryant and Gigi. And then the world fell apart right after that. It's like they held the glue together. But RIP to them, to Kobe Bryant, my favorite basketball player. We all grew up watching Michael Jordan, but, we saw, I grew up in the 90s. But, if you want to talk about really remembering every little bit and piece of somebody was Kobe Bryant, watching him play. So RIP to Kobe Bryant. Moving on back to Jimmy G. So I got to watch Jimmy G play up close with Dino Babers and that offense and the way Jimmy G played. Balled out his last 2 years in college. Again, he gets drafted by the Patriots. Got to rotate it. Got to play a couple games, start a couple games. Did pretty well, and then gets traded to the 49ers and has done pretty well. I got to help out. I'm a football coach, and then I volunteered my time to see how, because I thought about, I wanted to coach college football, and I kind of wanted to see what that was going to be like. And so I volunteered my time during spring ball, where you're either setting up the drills, maybe you're filming something that day. And so I got to talk to football players, meet the coaching staff. I got to, talk to Jimmy G a couple times. Um, so a little bit quote unquote biased, I guess. But he's from Illinois, he's from up here in the suburbs. So a little biased there, I guess. No, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm coming from a place of, I'm a Jimmy G fan. That's not what this is about. It's not what this is about, because I don't have a Jimmy G jersey, and no offense, I don't plan on buying one. I'm a Bears fan. Other jerseys I might get, but that's not one of them. Maybe one day, I don't know, but that's not what I have. That's not who I am. I'm not this diehard Jimmy G person. Okay. But I will say that being a football coach, we understand some other things, some of these things that some people don't understand. So we're going to talk about it. You've seen like Coach Jason Brown from Last Chance U. He's the head coach at Independence Community College and from Compton and stuff like that. And he got into it with a couple people on Twitter. And I'm listening to how some people talk about Jimmy G on Twitter. And I'm listening about, I can't remember her name, Mina, whatever. She's on the ESPN. She's whatever. Says a lot of smart things, understands football, pioneer in that industry. But it's weird where you watch some people talk about Jimmy G on this, and then you listen to other people. You listen to Pat McAfee show, and they talk about Jimmy G. Aaron Andrews is on there. They talk about Jimmy G and talk about this. So let me break this down. People are hating on Jimmy G because, especially after the Packers game, they didn't score a touchdown. They didn't. Jimmy G didn't throw a touchdown pass. And there's times, and then I believe it was at the Super Bowl run. There was a game where he only threw the ball like 9 or 10 times, and they won. Football is a unique thing that some people just don't understand. So let's break it down. Okay, in basketball, one player can take over a game. Okay, Michael Jordan's of the world, Kobe Bryant's of the world. They're going to take the game over. And yes, you quote unquote need a team to win, but ultimately that one person can make a difference. They're going to decide to score a lot. They're going to start making the passes. They can take over a game by themselves. Okay. You do need team stuff. You need to play defense. I'm not saying that, but ultimately you can have someone take over. Okay. In football, you need a lot of people doing some things. Your 11 that are on the field, kickoff, punt, offense, defense, they have to do their job. When 1 to 3 people don't do their job, one person not doing their job can ultimately lead to something bad. But ultimately, what people don't understand is you can kind of get away with that. So what I mean by that is on defense, if one defensive lineman is not, went to the wrong gap, but the offense was passing the ball, well, then it's okay, because when on a defensive lineman, if they go to the wrong gap and they run the ball, that running back's going to find the gap and go. Passing, maybe they passed the ball and your guy batted it down on the other side of the defensive line. So you didn't do your job, but nothing bad happened. But what if a defensive lineman and then 2 linebackers or 2 corners don't do their job right? Well, something bad's going to happen. So that's where football comes in. So football is really based around, because in basketball, you're going to run offenses to their strengths. Are you a motion team? Are you a ball screen team? Off the ball screener? Are you 4 out, 1 in, 5 out, no in? You're going to cut, pass, screen. Football, but in basketball, if you do that, you can adapt. So for example, if you've got a big post player, you're going to go 4 out, 1 in. You're going to do certain motions to keep them in the paint and try to get the ball if they're a decent post player. But if you don't, you can adapt that offense. And so see what I'm saying? So basketball, you can do tweaks and add different things, but you can ultimately keep same offenses. In football, you have to really go to strengths. On defense and offense, you have to go about what's for the team to win and do what they can do. This is the definition of Jimmy Garoppolo. He is a quarterback that they are going to um, call an offense around for him to be successful, because Kyle Shanahan and his father, who was also an offensive guy from EIU, also, they are good at calling plays. They are good at figuring out what's going to make their offense tick. Now, the 49ers had a rough go at the beginning of the year. They had a little bumps and bruises. They, were a little bit banged up, but they have a roster. They have a roster. Okay. And people don't believe that. But again, thing is, it's not always about the numbers. See, we've fallen into this world, and I've brought it up. Numbers mean something for this type of thing. We're going to talk and debate and everything else, especially when we're talking about greatest of all time and everything else. But numbers, again, you have to look at the offense that's being played. What are they doing to win? Now, when Jimmy G doesn't throw a touchdown pass and they win by 13 points, okay. But is he doing enough to keep the offense, moving? Is he doing enough to keep them competent? And I can always compare it, and I'm sorry that I'm doing it from a Bears fan perspective, but you look at the Super Bowl team. Rex Grossman did just enough, would have some good games, but he did just enough to keep them in position to win. Now, that defense carried them, obviously, but there's times he had a pretty good game. Sometimes the run game was there for that Bears team. The defense did well, and that's what people don't understand. So when you look at Jimmy G's even college career, because we don't talk about numbers, people go to numbers. So before I talk about his college, look at the numbers. That's what they always do. So people are talking about Jimmy G right now. So you got like this, I'm going to say her name wrong, Mina, whatever. I don't watch ESPN. I work throughout the day, so it's hard to watch ESPN. And all these people talk about he's the worst. I think she said he's the worst quarterback left. Well, one, they're in the playoffs. So what are you talking about? Well, the defense, but he's not losing them games. He's battling through something in his, he has had knee, ankle issues. He's had the thumb issue. And then you have people come out saying they love him in the locker room. They love his confidence. They love, his leadership. So why are you talking bad? So when you look at his college career, he was 1,047 completions out of 1,668 attempts. He played in 45 games. Completion percentage was 62.8. He threw for 13,156 yards and 45 touchdowns. Or, excuse me, sorry. I'm reading the wrong one. If you look at the career, he's thrown a lot of touchdowns. Look at his senior year, for example. 5,050 yards, 53 touchdowns. That is insane when he was at EIU. Okay. So he put up big numbers. And then his junior year, he threw for 31 touchdowns, threw for 3,823 yards. So, I mean, he has had a lot of success. Even then, they won a lot of games, mind you. Okay. Won a ton of games his junior and senior year. Did pretty well, I think. So there's some stats for you. But the most important stat is winning. What do we always talk about in football? Actually, any sport. Wins. We always talk about wins. So do they win? Yes, they win. And they don't know how. I don't know how he wins, but he does. In San Francisco, in 45 games, he is 31-14. That's a 0.68% win percentage. He has thrown for 11,144 yards during his time. He averages 8.4 yards completion. He has thrown 65 touchdowns to 38 interceptions. So what are we talking about here? That he wins games. But you got people talking, well, the defense wins them games. Oh, look at the coach. Everything else. All that stuff. Really? That's what we look at? He does enough in that offense to keep them in it. He does enough to be competent, because that's all you need when you are the quarterback, and all that matters is winning the game. Yes, The defense does a lot to help them win those games. Yes, a lot of times um, you have a run game that helps him. Yes, I understand all that. But is he out there each game throwing 4 interceptions and losing the game? No. And what we have fallen into in this stat world and everything else, and what these, people that have worked their way into this media world, they expect that a quarterback is going to throw for 200 yards, 300 yards, probably up to 400 yards. Oh my gosh, if they're not throwing for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns a game, they're terrible, like just god awful. And that's what these experts have fallen into. That's what they've fallen into. So you've got these people on ESPN, they're talking about, oh, well, he's the worst quarterback left, because they're looking at the numbers. They're not looking at what he means to the team. So because of people like them saying this stuff, I feel like we're going to have a lot more Jimmy G fans. So we're going to talk about it. All the guy does is win. He's not losing them games. Is there times that he's going to throw yards? Absolutely he is. There's not going to, and then there's times he's not going to. And sometimes it's going to be because of the game plan they have for offense. And people don't realize that, because we want to watch and listen to some of these people on ESPN and think that, yeah, they know everything. That they're the experts because they are on ESPN, they're on Fox. It's whatever. That's what we're supposed to listen to them. That's what it is. We're supposed to trust them and think that they know it all. And I'm not saying I know it all, but I don't hear people talking about, well, he just is winning games. I remember when he was out, for example, the 49ers only won 4 games when he was hurt that one year and couldn't play after the Super Bowl. Then he comes back and they win games. So to me, that should mean something. If you want to look at the whole stats, in 63 games that he's played, whether he started or played in the game, 45 and 18, and total 71 touchdowns to the 38 interceptions, 11,852 yards. So he seems to be a quarterback that, if he's not going to, necessarily lose you the game, he's not necessarily going to not make good checks at the line. He's not going to be a leader. So what are we talking about here? You know how many teams out there want a quarterback that understands how to win a game? You don't know how many teams understand to have a leadership from the quarterback position in the locker room. That could be Jimmy G. And that's why the 49ers are going to be in a unique situation. Whether they beat the Rams or don't, they win a Super Bowl or don't, do they trade Jimmy G and figure this out? Because there was a point where they thought, maybe we're not going to play him, because he's not throwing for 300 yards or whatever. But, oh, my God, he's winning games. Yes, it's a team effort. But he's not the weak link. If he's 11 for 13 passing, if he's 8 for 10 passing, if he's 1 for 4 passing and they win, well, guess what? That means he's playing in the offense. That means Kyle Shanahan, because he's had good games. He's thrown for a lot of yards in games. So what are we talking about here? Okay, what are we talking about? I'm looking at it right here in 2021. Week 1 versus Detroit, threw for 314 yards and a touchdown. Well, he's got to throw 3. Well, what if they're running the ball that game? What if that's what's open? 257 yards later on. Okay. 322 yards versus my Bears. 326 yards. And look at this. When he throws for a lot of yards like that, necessarily they're not winning. You know what I mean? It can go either way. And then if you're looking at some of the wins are under 300 yards, and he's only throwing a touchdown or 2, and they can win the games. So what are we talking about here? We talk always about winning the game. It doesn't matter how you win the game. It's winning the game, because ultimately you could throw for 400 yards or 500 yards in that game and throw for 3 touchdowns, but if you lose the game, what are we doing here? Yeah, the defense does well for him. Yes, the offensive play calling of Shanahan helps a ton. But ultimately, you need a quarterback that understands the offense. You need a quarterback that's not going to put you in a bad spot. You need to have a quarterback that can put the ball where it needs to be and do the things to win the game. That's what keeps everybody their job. It keeps your job. In the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, 20 of 31, 219 yards and a touchdown. Now he threw 2 interceptions. But he necessarily didn't lose them that game because they were ahead. The defense started to, give up a lot of plays. But those aren't quote unquote terrible. But when the Chiefs got confidence, we know this, when a team gets confidence, everything just starts to work. Jimmy G, since his junior year of being at EIU, has done nothing but one. Went to New England and got to see even more how to win. Got himself a Super Bowl ring, maybe 2, I believe. Got to see it. You saw when he started at New England, when Brady was suspended for a few games, did pretty well. Continued on at San Francisco. Everybody knows he's not the guy that's supposed to go out there and throw for 400 yards. He's going to get you the 180 yards. He's going to get you the 200 yards, maybe around the 250 if things are going okay. And the offense is predicated on running the football into the wide zone stuff, because you realize they were McVay, LaFleur, and Shanahan were on that Washington football team. And you see Sean McVay wants to run the ball. You see, for years, that's what Shanahan wants to do. Wants to run wide zone and run the ball. And Jimmy G is going to be that guy that can throw the short passes. Once in a while, get you the deep ball. Now, is he Peyton Manning? Is he Tom Brady? Is he some of these guys? Is he Aaron Rodgers? No, and nobody claims to be. But you got these people at ESPN that are putting him up to that standard, and that's not what you need to do. Is he a Hall of Famer? Maybe not. Probably not. But guess what? Again, what comes down to it? Winning. In the NFL, it's about wins because it's a huge business. People get fired after a year, 2 years, 3 years. They get fired. Player, coach, GM, they get fired. At my level, at the high school, is wins and losses, everything. No, it's. I believe that culture and being a good person, especially to the players, being that father figure, the leadership stuff, and then the X's and O's and defense will come along in offense, and all that builds on each other, and it will eventually turn into wins. But you're worried about the education, you're worried about their futures, and you're worried about other things. But then once you get up in the college levels of both, it's like split. NFL, they're still doing those things, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And how do they keep their jobs? Winning. And guess what? He's in the NFC Championship game, but he's horrible. These people talk about how horrible he is. They talk about how he can't play. And I hope so what they have done to me is, I was going for the Rams in the NFC on that side because I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's a really good quarterback. Just try to win one in Detroit, and there's a Detroit curse. You're not going to win yet. Now they're pushing me to go with the 49ers is what's starting to happen because of Jimmy G just does nothing but win games. Nothing but win games. Good mechanics. Sometimes, whatever. But can be pretty good. So I just don't understand when these people on ESPN talk about he's the weak link. They talk about all that stuff. So I just don't understand it. But congratulations to Jimmy G. on getting to the NFC Championship game again. You're a win away from getting to the Super Bowl. We might get a 49ers Chiefs rematch. And the 49ers have a roster. We'll do an episode later to talk about, the preview for that. But I had to come on here and defend Jimmy G and just realize that you guys, that winning the football game is all that matters. It's all that matters. But that will wrap up this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go follow it, be a friend, tell a friend, rate it, and all that good stuff for me, please. And thank you. Check out all the affiliates in the description below. Hopefully you guys start to think about that with Jimmy G. Try to, check out the weekly episodes. Hopefully things start to get back to normal on this side. But thank you guys so much for listening. Again, go do all that stuff for me, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for listening. And this has been Coach Steve, another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast, and we are out of here.